It's always a pleasure to see all of you, and especially to be with Cantor Lauren. And this is great. Makes me very happy. I've been looking forward to this all morning. So, Lauren, I realized I forgot to ask, and maybe Aaron can help. Do you have candles? You've got candles. You're just well prepared people. Okay, so we're going to spotlight Lauren, who's going to help us to begin our service tonight, both with lighting candles on page 120, and then also with our opening song for this evening. So, Cantor, it's all you.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kinshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
And thank you to Aaron. Oh.
We're all good.
I made him nervous. I said something nice and I made him nervous. That's all.
They may or may not have fallen, but we're totally fine.
That's okay. It's okay. It's okay. That's all right. All right. To begin Kabbalat Shabbat together on page 130.
Lechu neranena l'Adonai nairia letzorishenu nekalma fanav betona bizmirot nairia lo
We're now to page 131. Now to page 132, or Zarua. We'll turn now to page 134, Zamru Ladonai.
Zamru Ladonai.
Now to page 135, Romamu. Now to page 138 for L'Chadodi, and a reminder, we'll do the first, second, fifth, and ninth paragraphs.
L'Chadodi מקבלה לקראת שבת לכו ונאכה כי מקור הברכה וראש מקדם נשוכה סוף מעשה במחשבה תפילה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה התעוררי כי בעודך קומי אורי שיר דברי כבור אדוני עלי תפילה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה בואי בשלום עטר בעלה גם בשמחה ובצהלה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה.
We'll turn now to page 140.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך העליון ולזמר לשמך העליון מזמור שיר ליום השבת טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך העליון ולזמר לשמך העליון להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות עלה אסור עלינה ועלי היגיון בכינור מזמור שיר ליום השבת טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך העליון ולזמר לשמך העליון צדיק אתה מה יפרח כארץ בלבנון ישיה שתולים בבית אדוני בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו עוד ינובו משיבה דשנים ורעננים יהיו להגיד ישר אדוני צורי ולא עוונת עמו.
Turn now to page 145 for the Chatzikash.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בלמד יברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחיי חול וביומי חול ובחיי תכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם מעמיה יתמרח יפרח וישתבח מתבער ותרומם ינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשה בריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירה בעלמה ויאמרו אמן.
Turn now to page 146 for the Baruch Hu.
Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Marechu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed, Le'olam Va'ed. Ay, 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 ay,
Join with me on top of page 149. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows.
ומעביר יום מביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני, המניב הרביב. אהבת עולם, בית ישראל, אהבת, תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו למדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו, שוכבנו וקומנו, נשיח בדרכך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך, לעולם ועד. תהיה חיינו באורך ימינו, ובהם נגד יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד.
Please join me on page 154. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, Asher hotzaiti etchem mieretz Mitzrayim lihot lachem Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem Emet. Let's read together on the top of page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. As we turn back to Cantor Lauren and we turn to page 158, Michamot. Turn now to page 160, Hashkimin. Now to page 162 at the very top, Vishamri.
So לעולם אותי לעולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם וביום השמיני שבת מי נפש שבת מי נפש שבת ויהי נפש ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Thank you, Lauren will help us to begin the Amidah together on page 164, and then we will continue silently. As always, please go at your own pace.
Adonai שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך Adonai open up my lips and my mouth may declare your praise ay 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 ay
And you sound. we turn to page 371 for Ami Shaberach, we'll think tonight of those in our community and connected to our community who are in need of healing. We'll begin by thinking of Celia Paul, Brad Friedman, David Senft, Deborah Fogarty, Mike Klinghoffer, Chaim Ben Yosef Fechava, Norma Polsak, Dina Batchana, Bentzi Tepper, Cecilia Hirsch, Glenn Tinney, Tzipora Ahava, Gittel Bat Shmuel Ve'aviva, Bruce Steger, Chana Ruth Bat Sarah, Jeff Baker, David Tosher, Jim Cohn, Monique Rathbun, Lindsay Epstein, Dolores Michka, Sylvia Orn, Yerachmiel Ben Hinda, Paloma Chauhan, Samuel Moskowitz, Chaim Leib, Joyce Weinberg, Stu Pollack, Jane London, Catherine Guarino, Judy Stern, Miriam Kornfeld, Raz Brody, Chana Ruth Bat Sarah, Bagel Tzipora Bat Elisheva Bat Sarah, Richard Gambino, Michelle Sawicki, Idol Basha Bat Yitzchak, Tzvi Menachem Ben Chaim, Rivka Bat Devora, Amy and Gavin Tucker, Janice Kurz, David Dowling, Israel Ben Yitzchak, Lorraine Danis, Buddy Kasaf, Shelley Newmark, David Kyle Klotman, Rivka Bat Rachel, Sarah Bat Chana, Moshe Eliezer Ben Sivia, Peretz Ben Yehuda, Leah Bat Naomi, Gedalia Ben Leah, Justin Banner, Tzipora Ahava Bat Yehudit Rachel, Jane Beard Cass, Amy Cass, Steve Levine, Ephraim Raphael Ben Esther, and Myra Maslin. In addition to the names I just read, I'll invite those who are on Zoom to share names in the chat if you choose, and those at home to hold your loved ones in your heart as we turn back to Cantor Lauren and to page 371 for Ami Shaberach in the middle of the page.
May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheverach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirits, and let us say Amen.
Thank you, Cantor. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. So this Shabbat, we read from Parshat Tetzaveh, and Tetzaveh is the second in really a series of 5 parshas that conclude the book of Exodus that are really all tied together. Last week, as we talked about, a lot of description of sacred vessels, the actual sort of ingredients, the supplies, the things that are necessary in order to build the Mishkan itself. And this week's portion shifts a little bit of its attention towards the priests and the Levites who are going to actually serve in the Mishkan and to do that actual work. And just as there was a lot of thought, a lot of attention, and a lot of purpose put into the physical objects that are to be used in the Mishkan and the Mishkan itself, there is just as much attention and interest and ultimately purpose that is placed in the discussion around the sacred, what we call vestments, clothing that is worn, in particular by Aaron and his children who are known as the Kohanim, and ultimately the Leviim, the tribe of Levites that are in support of and work together with in the Mishkan and eventually in the temple itself. So in the description of Aaron as the high priest, we get one of the more interesting descriptions and also one of the more enigmatic ones, of which the rabbis have a million things to say, but I'm going to focus on one piece in particular. But let's start with the Torah text itself. Let's start from this week's portion, Exodus chapter 28, verses 29 and 30. So it says, "V'nasa Aharon et shemot b'nei Yisrael b'choshen hamishpat al libo b'vo'u el hakodesh." So first part, that Aaron will carry on his heart, the Choshen Mishpat, which is translated generally as the breastplate of decision, of judgment. So imagine again, sort of a same way, I guess, a knight in armor, right? That there is a breastplate, something that goes over right here, that is known as this choshen, right? Choshen is breastplate, but mishpat is the key additional word, that it is somehow involved in the concept of adjudication of judgment itself, and that this rests upon his heart every time, bevohu el hakodesh, every time that he comes to be close to God, Liz karon lifnei Adonai tamid, right? Every time that he does this, it's for the purposes of reminding God of what we'll talk about. And every time, tamid is a word that basically means at all times. Okay, so that basically in this first pasuk, we learn that in the Choshen Mishpat, the breastplate of judgment is over Aaron's heart. He wears it every single time that he comes in close contact to God, El HaKodesh. And the purpose of this is, again, a somewhat enigmatic Lizkaron, right? This idea of remembrance of some sort. Okay, then we get a second verse, verse 30, which picks up on this idea and goes a little bit further and brings in even more, I would say ambiguity, but things that need to be expressed, things that need to be understood a little bit more. V'natata el hachoshen hamishpat et ha'urim ve'et ha'tumi. So the literal translation is you should give to the choshen mishpat, right, to the breastplate of judgment. But really, the idea seems to suggest placing within it or in some proximity to it something that is just referred to in Hebrew as Urim and Tumim. So Urim and Tumim, we'll get back to in 2 seconds. Unlike a lot of other words in the Torah, there's really no other place to really understand what they are. There's no clear description of them. There's no contemporaneous usage of it. We really have very little to go off in the actual Torah text itself, especially in this portion in which we have basically no further explanation. All we know is that it is placed in the breastplate. V'hayu also al lev Aharon, right? That it is again tied to in some form or the other Aaron's heart. Bevo lifnei Adonai v'nasa Aharon et mishpat b'nei Israel al libo lifnei Adonai tamid. And that basically every time again, this Urim and Tumim that are part of this Choshen Mishpat, all this stuff together on top of Aaron's heart, going in front of God for the purposes of zikaron, of some vague concept of remembrance, and that this is going to end up being et mishpat b'nei Israel alibo. He's not just carrying this breastplate on his heart. We're told that basically every time that Aaron goes to be close to God, he is carrying the mishpat of the children of Israel with him. And again, all of this is fairly enigmatic and all tied to this phrase Urim and Tumim, which we really actually know very little about without some additional help. So usually when you're looking for additional explanation, one of the first places that you can go is to Talmud. Talmud is, in effect, right, Mishnah and Gemara is a form of, and this is a whole nother conversation, it's a kind of commentary, kind of a super commentary on the Torah itself, and it helps a lot of times to clarify or to explain that which is not explained in the text itself. Okay, now I realize some of this is technical and there's some technical terms. Just bear with me. Hopefully this will all make a little bit more sense in a minute, I promise. So in Masechet Yoma, the rabbis ask, why is it called Urim v'Tumim? Okay, so first of all, let's try to understand what do these words mean, and then we'll try to understand how they relate to the Choshen Mishpat, to this breastplate of judgment that Aaron is wearing. So the text explains, rabbis explain, Urim, if that word sounds familiar, if I said the word or to us, okay, I can still see some of you. If I said the word or in Hebrew, that should sound like a somewhat familiar word, at least to our cantorial and rabbinical students in the room, right? It means light, okay? Urim means light. It's based in the word light, or. And it is so called, according to the sages, because it illuminates and explains its words. Okay, so hold that. That doesn't really help us a whole lot more. It just says it's an illuminating characteristic, right? The Urim, whatever purpose they are, is that it's illuminating. And the Tumim, which is based on the word tam in Hebrew, is understood. Tam could have many different meanings, but here it's using it in the sense of completion, because in the end, it's the thing that completes the words, which ensures that they always come true. Okay, so we're not really a whole lot clear on what's going on here. Right now, we just have a little bit of rabbinic wordplay. But what we seem to be getting from the sages is the idea that whatever this Urim and Tumim is, and its connection to the Choshen Mishpat, is not accidental, and it is not minimal. It is actually quite significant. And it seems to serve a dual purpose. One is illumination, and one is the assurance of the completion of whatever it is that is being discussed. Okay, so now we're going to get into the more present question, which is how is it done? Okay, how the sages ask, well, what does this mean? Okay, so we understand that Aaron wears this thing. We understand that the breastplate has these additional pieces of Urim and Tumim. We understand that whenever Aaron goes to talk to God, one of, if not the main purpose of it, is Lazikaron, for the purposes of remembering, which we presume to be God remembering our people. Okay, but how does all this actually work? How is it anything other than just some fancy clothes? Okay, so here the sages give us a little bit of instruction. They say, how is it done? How does the Urim and Tumim provide an answer? Okay, so what's the question? Let's start with that. The idea of this, and this comes from other sources later on, is that the Choshen Mishpat, again, was not just a piece of clothing. It served an actual functional purpose, which is that when two things. When Aaron would go in to pray in front of God, he was bringing the entire people with him, right? That's what we're told on his heart. He brings the children of Israel, Bnei Israel, with him. And the purpose is that God will remember specifically in relationship to basically our faults and our failures and our sins. That part of Aaron's major job, the job of the Kohanim, was to be in a place in which the high priest is interceding on behalf of the rest of the community for the mistakes that they have done. Okay, so in essence, this is an expiation ritual of sorts that when Aaron goes in, part of the purpose of Aaron talking to God is to receive mishpat, right? Receive judgment from God for various kinds of things. Okay. The second piece of it is exactly that it's also meant to be something of an instruction or a way by which God gives instruction to Aaron and therefore to the people, especially as it relates to matters of justice, matters of mishpat, matters of judgment itself. And we learn throughout the Israelites' history, especially when they're in the temple eventually, that this is done and actually becomes something of a pro forma experience where, for example, whoever is ruling at the time has a tough question. They're not sure how to deal with it. The king would therefore would ask the question of the high priest while wearing the Choshen Mishpat, and then they would get some kind of answer. Okay, so that's where we come back to our Talmud text now. Right now we're in this idea of, okay, so the Urim and Tumim are helpful in providing an answer to the question that is asked of God. So now here's the next piece of it, which relates back to our Torah text. Okay, all we're really told, in the Torah is that the children of Israel rest upon Aaron's heart. But here we're told that actually it's more technical than that. It's more specific than that. It's more tangible than that. And then, in fact, it's not just sort of a philosophical statement. It's a literal statement. The names of the 12 tribes are actually all engraved upon the 4 rows, 3 sets, totaling 12 of the 12 tribes that are set into the breastplate, into the Choshen Mishpat. So you have to picture a sort of, a silver kind of thing covering the chest with rows of beautiful stones, and on each of those stones is the name of each of the 12 tribes. So Aaron is quite literally, not just in a figurative sense, but in a literal sense, walking in and walking around with all of the names of the tribes written upon. Okay, so as the Talmud tells us, the names of the 12 tribes are engraved upon the stones of the breastplate. And these letters, the letters that made up each of these names, is ultimately how an answer is received by the high priest from God. So what does that mean? We get a few different answers as to how that actually works. So Rabbi Yochanan says the letters of the answer, right, the question that's asked of God, the answer comes because the letters that are on the stones that are spelling the names of all the tribes will suddenly protrude. And the priest then combines the letters to form words in order to ascertain the message. So you can think of it actually in some ways like Braille, right? That the sort of letters that stick up is a way for them to determine, for Aaron to determine what God's answer is. Right. So if we ask God, what is the meaning of life? And God's answer is whatever, the letters that are necessary to make up the answer will pop up over the rest of them. Okay, so that's interesting. Then Reish Lakish, who's another great rabbi, says, well, actually, the way that it really works is that these letters will magically rearrange themselves and join together to form words. Okay, so if this doesn't sound familiar to you, this is like my major revelation of the day. What is the one thing that seems to be sweeping the country in terms of a game that people play? It's a thing called Wordle. Okay, so basically what this is describing is Wordle. Okay, that the letters all are there, you have to place them in the right order, and then you figure out what's ultimately going. So either Wordle is actually modern manifestation of Torah law, and we should all be paying very close attention to what the answers are every day, or the Wordle guy stole this idea from the Torah. But either way, where that's basically what we're dealing with here, is one way or the other, these letters are manifesting and giving kinds of answers, okay? But the question is, how is it possible to receive an answer to every question, the rabbis point out? Because if you actually look very carefully, and you don't have to do this right now, but if you were looking at the Hebrew spelling of all the 12 tribes, if you were to use all of the letters that make up those tribes, the letter tzadi is not one of them. So how can you have an answer to every question if the letter tzadi is not part of the equation? So the rabbis, being smart, say, oh, no. It wasn't just the 12 tribes that are written on the breastplate. It's actually beyond that, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay, our patriarchs are also listed. Yitzchak contains the letter tzadi, and therefore that deals with the issue. Okay, but the rabbis, again, not satisfied, say, well, not exactly, because what about the letter tet? The letter tet is also not part of the names of the tribes, nor is it a part of the names of the patriarchs. And so the Gemara answers, right? Rav Aha Bar Yaakov says that actually it wasn't just the names of the tribes, and it wasn't just the names of the patriarchs, but the word Shiftei Yeshurun, which is one of the sort of more obscure, but kind of like Bnei Israel, is a general phrase for the tribes of Yeshurun, the tribes of Israel, basically. So in each of these cases, right, it's not just the names of the tribes, it's not just the patriarchs, that this breastplate actually contains all of the entire community, basically. Okay, every element, past, present, and even conceivably future, all of these things are contained within it. And because all of those letters are now available, that's the way that this whole thing ultimately operates. And that the Urim and the Tumim and the Choshen Mishpat working together with all of these letters that are provided by the names of the tribes, the names of our patriarchs, and ultimately the name of our collective people, every one of those elements is necessary in order for this whole thing to function. So let's try to bring this all back to one sort of idea, okay? If what we understand is being said here in the Torah and by the rabbis of the Talmud, that the Choshen Mishpat played an incredibly important role for our ancestors. It was the main mechanism by which Aaron, the high priest, and Aaron's successors, basically were able to converse with God, in particular matters of mishpat, matters of justice, matters of judgment, things that hold a society together. And so this one item was not just one item. It was actually a combination of a number of different things. The Urim that is illuminating, the Tumim, which is ensuring that something is not just words, but it actually gets done. And that ultimately speaking, every element of the society needs to be remembered. It needs to literally be on the heart of the person asking the question in order to be able to suss out what the actual answer is, right? If any one of those pieces are missing, we may not actually get the proper answer. And I think there's really a very powerful message contained within all of this, that the idea, for example, the Choshen Mishpat is really about our nationhood, right? It's about questions that affected our entire people as they were in the desert and ultimately when the temple was built. These were matters of judgment, matters that determined whether or not the society would be just, whether or not the king would rule or the queen would rule fairly, right? These were not insignificant things, but of all of that wonderful sort of supernatural purpose that this breastplate contains, none of it works unless everybody is really part of the equation, right? Unless the person who's asking the question is really trying to hold in their hearts the needs and the identity and the purpose of everybody, not just one segment, not just one group, not just the elite, not just the men, not just the women, right? But everybody, ultimately speaking, is involved in this. The Choshen Mishpat, the Urim and the Tumim, are meant to be a representation, a tangible representation of the will of an entire people in asking God for judgment and in taking that judgment and turning it into the mechanisms by which to build a righteous and a just society. And it's not to say that every single voice, every single time needs to be considered, not that every single voice, every single time is correct. But it means that whenever we're in a position where we are trying to think about the totality, right, an entire community's worth of people, an entire nation's worth of people, if we try to go into this experience without at least acknowledging the fact that we are made up of lots of different constituent parts, and that there are voices that ultimately speaking are part of the conversation, whether we follow them or we don't, I think we actually are putting ourselves really in a much more challenging position than what's being described here in the Torah, and ultimately that the rabbis expound upon in the Talmud itself. And I just love this sort of image that, it doesn't exist, quite frankly, in our world. But the idea that there was ever a point in time in which the leader of the Jewish people experienced God, but only with this idea of holding the entire people on top of their heart, and that every decision that was made in that kind of mindset. And that, much like the way that we were told that we wear tefillin on our arms as a symbol, or we wear tzitzit on our talis as a symbol and a reminder, the same was true for our high priest as it is for us today. And whenever we experience closeness to God, that sometimes we need symbols, we need reminders, we need things that help us to focus our intention. And I think it's very easy for us to become siloed. It's very easy for us to really only want to identify with one particular, group, one particular tribe, one particular patriarch or matriarch, whatever it may be. But at least for the role of the high priest, that wasn't really allowed. It was necessary to really, as the text tells us, to carry on the heart of the high priest as they come close to God, really the will, the need, and the intention of the entire people. And I think that really, to me, that's a very beautiful message, challenging one that may be impractical, certainly in today's society, but one that I think is still aspirational, and one that I think should be, held a little bit higher. And I certainly, on a very personal level, will try to think a little bit more deeply about the times in which perhaps my role puts me in a position to be making decisions on behalf of others, to do so with that same kind of seriousness as Aaron walked in to convene with God, that we are really holding everybody on our hearts and everybody in our essence as we ask these fundamental questions about what to do and where best to go. So with that, I all wish you a Shabbat Shalom. And if you've never seen what the breastplate looks like or anything like that, Google is a wonderfully powerful thing. And just as a last word about Wordle, nothing has made me feel really less adequate than Wordle. I tried to do it the other day, and I sat there for a half an hour, and then I walked away just furious at myself. It's like, I can't spell, I don't know any of these words, and I'm not going to be able to do this. But clearly, there's some ancient wisdom in all of this stuff, that's for sure. Anyway, we'll turn now to page 586. You can join me at the bottom of the page. Aleinu l'shabeach. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol latet gedula liotzer breshit shelo asanu kegoyeh ha'aratzot velo samanu kemishpachot ha'adama shelo sam chelkenu kahem vegor aleinu kechol hamonam v'anachnu korim ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Page 591. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. As we turn to page 598 in preparation for the Mourner's Kaddish, we'll begin by thinking of those who passed in our community in recent months. Dr. John Abderkin, Morris Dickstein, Faith Diskin, Linda Donath, Jay Fagan, Ellen Frank, Sandra Furman, Evelyn Gelb, Arthur Grossman, Gerald Hirsch, Mark Joseph, Deirdre Klein, Jeanette Kopp, Leo Leibowitz, William Littman, Audrey Lubo, Morty Lynn, Jerry Monroe, Nancy Nagel, Harry Olstein, Geraldine Rosen, Harriet Roth, Jeannie Rubin, Howard Schreier, Paul Silver, Marlise Silverberg, Blanche Sklar, Rita Sandra Snyder, Joan Strong Tangzilius, Gloria Taradash, Barbara Pollard, and Roy Greenberg. We also mark the yahrzeits that occurred during the last week for Gustav Amsterdam, George Baskin, Ignaz Brill, Phyllis Britz, Irving Busgang, Jimmy Ernst, Annette Fisher, Ada Glass, Sheila Riskin Glazer, Dr. Elliot Grant, Deborah Greenberg, Bernard Kalkstein, Carol Kossoff, Louis Liu, Myrna Massoff, Theodore Meyer, Ethel Miller, Max Moskowitz, Ava Waxman Nadell, Max Panitz, Gussie Peller, Ali Pomeroy, Emma Rosen, Stanley Schneider, Caroline Schreiber, Dorothy Shupnick, Jack Spivak, Anna Steinberg, Jacob Stiglitz, Betty Tobias, and Morris Weinberg. In addition to the names that we mentioned, if you have additional loved ones that you are remembering tonight that we didn't mention and you're on the Zoom, you can add them in the chat. And those at home simply to say the names out loud or to hold your loved ones in your hearts. I'll invite the mourners to join me on page 598. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Be'alma divrach irutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala u'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'li'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudsha brichu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalama Rabbah min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may every one of their memories be for a blessing. Okay, Shabbat Shalom, everybody, all of our friends on the Zoom, everybody watching at home. A few important announcements. This week in particular, some important announcements as they relate to next week. But let's start with this week first. Shabbat services will be live streamed tomorrow at 9:30 with me and Cantor Lauren, available on our YouTube channel, Facebook page, or our website. And then to join us for a Torah study beginning at 12 o'clock on Zoom. Most of you, if you're members of the congregation, should have received an email earlier this week. The board met on Wednesday and decided, based upon the circumstances as they are, that we'll be able to at least dip our toes back in the world of in-person things. So that begins next Friday with Shabbat services Friday night. We'll be back to a hybrid model. So those who are vaccinated are welcome to join us at the Whalers Church at 6 o'clock. Those that would like to watch from home, of course, will still be available live streaming as always. Saturday mornings, however, will remain virtual, but there will be one important change. Unlike the way that it's structured now, generally it is just one way, right? You guys watch us and that's it. But from this point forward on Saturday mornings, not tomorrow, beginning next Saturday, you could be on the Zoom with me, and when Cantor Lauren is available, with Cantor Lauren and myself, just like it is tonight on our Friday night Zoom. So we'll be able to see you, you'll be able to see us. You can tell me things, whatever it may be. We can do virtual lias, all that good stuff. Things we probably should have done a long time ago, but for whatever reason just occurred to me to do. So just look, very important, in the next week's Shabbat announcements, anybody who'd like to join. And same principle as with Saturday services have always been. Some people show up when it starts. Some people show up a little bit later than that. That's okay. Even in the Zoom, you could be a little bit late to shul. It's fine, okay? Lauren and I, we're not judgmental people. We try not to. There's no kosher mishpat of judgments for people coming in late. So you're welcome to join us again, but we appreciate very much the board and their consideration of the issue. As always, health and safety is our main concern, and we don't do anything capriciously. But this will be what's in place for now. Hebrew School will be back in session in person beginning on Monday as well. And we'll continue to adjust, but hopefully it looks like we're going in a more positive direction for the first time in a while. So let's stay optimistic, people. Why not? You know, as my friend Richard Hemley says, it costs us nothing to be optimistic. So let's do it. So again, just please make sure that you're keeping up with that. And those that are coming to services, just a reminder again that we have, as many places, we need boosters to be considered fully vaccinated at this point. So you can bring your card with you. If you're really nice, you can send in your information to Eileen during the week. It'll make her life a lot easier. And if you have any questions about any of this, please let me know or call our co-presidents. We'll be happy to discuss it further. A few other things to note. Nimitz will be meeting on Monday at 9 o'clock. A reminder, my Heschel class is now officially shifted to Mondays at 12. All are welcome. Hebrew School will be at 4 o'clock, and Social Justice Committee will have its virtual meeting at 5 o'clock. On Wednesday, we have Hebrew School at 4. Later that evening is the first of a series of online courses aimed for teenagers in particular on anti-Semitism. It's open to anybody on the East End. So if you know any teens in the area that could use a little bit of support and a little bit of education, again, this is open 6 o'clock on Wednesday. Just contact Shelley Lichtenstein for more details. Reminder, this Thursday at 11 a.m., there's a virtual tour live from Vienna's Kunst Historical Museum of their old musical instruments collection. Includes the most important examples of Renaissance and Baroque instruments in the world. Please make sure, though, that you register on Eventbrite to be able to access it. Friday, my class on A Journey to the Heart of the Siddur will be at 9:15. Reminder also on Sunday, February 20th, hosted in conjunction with Canio's Cultural Cafe, and the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the South Fork will be hosting a book talk with Dr. Julian Zelizer on his new book on Abraham Joshua Heschel. This is accessible both in person and online. All that information should be in the flyer if you'd like to join us. There's a few other things going on in February, but I've lost my voice, and all the things. So check out our website, check out our e-blast. Also, great stuff coming up in March. And just a reminder, it's been bounced around a few times, but Cantor Lawrence Practicum is officially, we are hoping, next week. Cantor, I'll bring you up right now, and you can tell everybody the details again, and then we'll send out how to access it when it's appropriate. So tell us all about it.
Yeah, so it's going to be this Wednesday. There are going to be 3 people on the program. I will be the third one. So the program officially starts at, I would say, around 10:20 to 10:25. And we're ideally not going to go past 12 o'clock. I will send Rabbi Dan the link. It's a Vimeo link. So if you want to watch it live, or also can watch it later, or you don't have to watch it all, I will not be offended. The theme is Hanukkah music from around the world. So yeah, I think that's everything.
So in February. But and again, as I told Cantor, because she's too humble, they put her third because she's like in baseball. Okay, she's batting close to cleanup, which means she's the best of the 3. So we all know it. She won't take any credit for it, but it's true. She's the best. And Lauren, you're going to do great. We have no doubt about it. In the meanwhile, good practice for next week. Closing song for us, perhaps.
Yes.
One of my absolute favorite melodies, and I learned from our shared teacher, Mary Arian, who, Lauren, very close. I mean, really, that's an impressive thing to be that close to. Really, great choice, great melody, great Shabbos. So we're going to turn to page 123, and if you have a Kiddush cup handy, you're welcome to join me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam mohorei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabahat kodsho b'ahavahu v'ratzon inchilanu zikaron lemahaseh v'reishit Yehu yom techila lemikrae kodesh zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim Kivanu v'acharta v'yotanu kidashta Mikol hamim v'shabat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon Hinchaltanu baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen. Okay, l'chaim, Shabbat Shalom to everybody. Those that are on Zoom, you're welcome to hang around.